Welcome. All right, so we are going to be talking for this session about AI medical devices and patient-driven health. I'm here today with Navid Alipour, the CEO of CureMetrics, and Parveen Panwar, the CEO of Ziva Health. These are two incredible companies, both of which are using artificial intelligence to improve patient health. The reason that we're having this conversation today is because we're entering this we kind of alluded to it in our opening session, but we're entering this very interesting time where we have an extreme shortage of doctors and an extreme increase in patients that is about to be taking place. We already have the shortage of doctors. We are beginning on the trajectory of the increase in patients. But at the same time, we also have this increase in data powered by devices like this one, powered like your Apple phone, your Apple Watch, and powered by devices like the one that Navid is building with doctors, right? So we're going to be talking about that whole trajectory today. And I want to start with Parveen, who is building a dashboard for doctors to help understand patient health. Can you talk a little bit more about Ziva and where the idea came from and what kinds of artificial intelligence you're using?
No, definitely. Initially, Ziva started as a breathing app. So during COVID, I was in India. I got Delta COVID, and my dad went through the same thing. He passed away. I survived. And I thought, I have no idea, but I would definitely want to do something in healthcare. And the magical thing happened is when I met my co-founder, who's also present in the audience, Dr. Mike Crusoe. So when I met him, we talked about, how do we get all this data? Even all these people are doing different things. How do we able to get this data, how it's helping them in terms of how they're sleeping and everything? So the main thing happened with Ziva entered healthcare last year. So the idea was we have so many devices. Everybody has devices like Apple Watch, so much data that's been going around. But none of this data has been looked by physicians or doctors and anybody. So, you go there for sick care, which is once a year, you do your checkup, and then 364 days a year, they don't know what's going on with you. So the idea of Ziva was, how do we create a platform, which is a continuous care platform, by receiving continuous data from different devices so we can really do a proactive and smart care. Now, regarding shortage of doctors, we know what's going on in the medical industry. The idea for us is we don't want to replace doctors, but how do we provide them tools? We already know they have so much time commitments. So what Ziva does is, Ziva has created its own model. We are using some LLMs there. But the idea is basically, how do we get all this data? How do we summarize this data? And then also, how do we find anomalies and patterns? And then we are able to present that in a more readable format for the doctor to be able to say, you know what? I need to see this person. Something is going on. The flag has gone on. I saw this anomaly. And that way, it creates a touch point and able to provide better care. So that's how Ziva is looking at things. But when we see the AI, we look at by creating reports. They don't need to spend time creating all these reports. Mm-hmm. They don't need to summarize. So we are giving them a layer to make their life easier, but at the same time, provide more continuous, proactive, smart care.
Wonderful. So Navid, you're on the other side of this. Once someone comes in with some kind of marker, it's essentially, or at a regular checkup, they would come in and see you. Tell us a little bit more about CureMetrics.
Yeah, so on CureMetrics, we're specifically women's health focused. And initially, we built our AI to detect breast cancer in women better than existing CAD technologies. Now, not to take away from breast cancer, we found, though, we could detect the breast arterial calcification, which is an early onset of coronary vascular disease per cardiologists and all the academic research out there in the Journal of American College of Cardiology. So, again, heart disease kills 5 times as many women as breast cancer, so we're not taking away from that, but we decided to develop that product. And so we got that clearance in late Q4 of 23, and now have the first FDA-cleared AI that detects breast arterial calc in women from that same mammogram. And so our clients, our customers, we're B2B, are the imaging centers and the hospitals. So in the US, there's 9,000 MQSA certified sites where women can go get a mammogram. Our software, 100% cloud-based, It sits on top of the packs.
So you don't have to change the machine at all.
Don't have to change the machine. The majority of them are Hologic machines, but then you got GE, Siemens, Philips, Hologic. So our software sits on top of that. Doesn't affect the workflow. Woman checks in for a mammogram, goes through the same process, no extra radiation, no extra discomfort. And our CM angio product then will say, we'll flag the images that have calcification, and then in the workflow that goes back to the primary care OB that will refer the patient to cardiologist.
So one of the things that I actually from one of our fellows here, Alexa, have heard about from people who work in the medical space is that the imaging takes a long time, and that can be a significant challenge. And it seems to me that what you're describing would be a partial, at least in this one space for female patients, a solution to that.
It is, and per the FDA, software is a medical device when it's diagnostic. So even though it worked 5 years ago, we legally couldn't sell it until we got that clearance. And it took a ton of work and working with the FDA and doing ground truth reading where the radiologists read the image with their naked eye and then our AI. And we have no say over that. That gets submitted to the FDA, of course. And so that's where academically this has been known that calcification is an early onset. And if you ask radiologists, can you see this with your eyeballs? They'll say, yeah. You say, okay, how often do you report it? 1 to 2% of the time. What do you call it? An incidental finding. So that's where we said this is a travesty. Like this should be on 100% of the mammograms, because with women, 69% to 70% die on that first heart attack, completely asymptomatic. Whereas men will have chest pain, will have shortness of breath, will get on generic statins and see a cardiologist. But for women, oftentimes that's they're misdiagnosed. Fatigue could be an early onset of a heart attack. And so this is really valuable for that 45-year-old woman that goes in for that first mammogram to check for breast cancer, and if our software is embedded at that site, to also check for calcification.
So if we were to connect the dots between these two systems, is there anything that, for example, I could see in my own heart rate data or heart rate variability data that might indicate that I needed to go in for that?
So that's a great question. I'll share a personal story here, and my wife is okay with me sharing this. A couple of years ago, during the kind of COVID shutdowns, her Apple Watch was giving her high resting heartbeat. So not when she was exercising, but when she was sitting down reading a book, having a glass of wine at a restaurant. And so she went to her primary care, did all the tests. Her cholesterol was a little high, and said, well, why don't you go see the cardiologist down the hall? She ended up doing a calc test, and she has calcification. And so because of that watch, she now is on the appropriate medications, and she was in fine shape then, but is that much more careful. And so that's where, by detecting earlier and by having this interconnectivity to say, okay, there's high resting heartbeat, there is higher cholesterol, and information that's mined from the EHR and the telehealth meetings, it could lead to saying, let's go get a mammogram as well, so get this 2-for-1 benefit.
I know I would be much more likely to go in for a mammogram if I thought it would also tell me if my risk of heart attack.
Yes.
So I'm curious, Parveen, if you could tell me a little bit more about what is it like, what are the biggest barriers to getting this into doctors' offices, and how are doctors responding to these dashboards? What have you seen so far?
Well, we've been working with few clinics right now. What we have realized is doctors don't like big reports and big things that they have to go through. So it's even though every doctor wants a proactive care, but it cannot happen based on extra time that they have to spend on it. But if you can, all this data that's coming in, and if you can flag few things, right, and make it easy for them before the appointment, or at least a team member to follow up based on certain things, right? So for example, we can see, if I see trends, the way I look at it, my mother-in-law had pancreatic cancer, but more than 1 year ago, her whole vitals started changing. Her sleep was all over the place, her HRV started to go down, her resting heart rate was way up. The body is always sending signals, right? Always sending signals. It's just when do we listen to those signals? So if at that time we had the knowledge and we were able to listen to the signals like you mentioned, we would have done all these different tests. We would have that would be the first step to say, you know what, something is not right. This is not your usual pattern. So our goal is, when we create those dashboards, We want to make it easy for doctors and patient onboarding, because right now there's no patient engagement at all. So when people come to us, clinics invite the patient onto our platform, say download the app. As soon as they download the app, they connect the devices, or we help them connect devices. And now it could be any device, by the way. You could have CGMs, you could have this Oura Ring, you can have Apple Watch, you can have your blood pressure machine. Anything that you have, you can connect, and all these data is flowing through. Now we're looking at the trends coming through, and these trends need to speak to something. And that's what we are giving to doctor, basically those points that we are seeing, the anomalies.
So what are the trends that doctors are most interested in?
That's a good question. So doctors are interested in mostly correlation. So now when you think about it, your blood glucose, right? You might think, what does blood glucose has to do with cholesterol? Or what does blood glucose has to do with metabolic syndrome and all those things? Or what does blood glucose has to do with, your blood pressure? Everything, they like correlation. Your sleep, your blood glucose, your blood pressure, your HRV, they like this correlation to see which factors.
It's like they like to identify patterns.
Exactly. No, it's true. And we have seen that. Like, look, I'm very lucky here. We have 2 of the patients who use our app in the audience. And I think looking at those patterns has really changed different things, because we realize certain foods were affecting someone's sleep. Like, you might think, I go to bed, I get up. I mean, what is your quality of sleep? What is your restorative sleep? You should not be asking, I slept for 10 hours. That's a wrong question to ask. The question you need to be asking is, what is my restorative sleep on a daily basis, which is REM and deep. And I think what's happening is, once we see those things and we see how different things are affecting lifestyle, exercise, all these things that's coming, all these data that's already flowing through us, that can really help change how the medicine is practiced in healthcare. And that's what we're trying to make it simple for doctors.
So one question I have, this is, we're in San Diego with a bunch of entrepreneurs and an audience. All of the people in this room likely have the financial well-being to purchase these devices. Mm-hmm. Do you see a major gap emerging between the health and inequality? What does that look like moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always been a gap, right? Our goal is right now, even in this audience right now, majority of people have these devices. And a lot of people, what we follow is, we start with remote patient monitoring, which is the 3 or 4 FDA approved devices, which is the blood pressure device and the weighing machine and the temperature that you can take. So the way we are tackling this is, you don't have to have devices that are expensive. You can even use something very simple. We can even start with a small blood pressure machine, right? So the idea is, the more data that comes in, we're not making our judgment based on episodic data. And this is the big problem. We want continuous data. We don't want to say you have high blood pressure because we saw you on the stage and we took your blood pressure right now. But we want to see over 3 months how your blood pressure has been. And I think that's where it doesn't have to be devices like start with this device. It could be any simple device that can start getting the data. And I think right now, even as in the clinics, I see some clinics are offering devices to their patients. For example, if they are compliant using one device, then they will get devices like other device in a few months from now.
Okay. Navid, I want to hear a little bit more from you about the future of in-clinic diagnostic devices. Are there you've made this discovery by accident, essentially, right? Where are the other spaces that you see potentially AI or increased data opening that up for new discoveries?
No, good question. And it wasn't entirely by accident. We had cardiologists and radiologists on our team that, again, academically, this has been known. We just chose...
Accidentally on purpose. Sorry.
Accidentally on purpose. I'll take that. We just put all our chips on this during COVID because mammography wasn't an essential service. So no one was buying any healthcare IT products. And so we used that time to develop this because no one else had ever done it. And it was the lighting in the bottle, so to speak. And doctors were saying, hey, if you get that to market, there's nothing else like it. And so that's where we focus on that. But I think in regards to AI and healthcare generally, and in regards to where it's implemented, we all want to live longer, and it's all about better detection, better treatment, and better monitoring. So yes, track your sleep and your heartbeat and what you eat and your supplements, But at the end of the day, cancer and heart disease are the two top causes of mortality, and they will be for a long time. And it's all about earlier detection. So anywhere that, whether it's from a blood test or it's from imaging technology to get that early diagnosis, a Cologuard for colon cancer, in that example, of course, then you could say, okay, now what are the appropriate treatments, and then to monitor then with the tools that are out there to monitor. But that's where AI complements the doctor, and it's not going to replace the doctor. It's the doctor that uses AI will replace the doctor that is not, and we do have a shortage, and so it allows that one doctor to see more patients and to be more proactive in it, and frankly, it allows us as individuals to play more assertive role in our own healthcare and be more proactive. So I think anywhere that whether it's detecting a cancer or diabetes earlier or potential stroke earlier, that's where AI will pick up on those patterns and those anomalies that the human brain cognitively won't, or they don't have time, and there's not enough time in the days for what the doctors are already doing. So these tools empower them to then be able to take better care of their patients.
I had the chance to meet the CEO of Aura recently at a conference, and we were talking about this topic, right? What is the future of patient-driven health, and how will devices enable that? One of the things that I've noticed from, since putting on my wearable, which was not very long ago, honestly. I think I got this in December of this year. So I've just been amazed by the level of intersection between all these different variables and what I've learned about my own body and how it works, right? So if you've never worn an Oura ring before, you can see, the impact of your daily decisions in a very granular way on all of the things that we've been talking about today, where it's heart rate variability, heart rate, like your REM time, and you can, I think, having that visibility in a very experiential way is part of what makes it such a powerful intervention for healthcare, right? And I'm just curious, based on your own two experiences, what are the things that you do on a daily basis for your own health, or that you recommend other people do?
Well, I have a crazy schedule, but I get up 5:30 every day. I do sauna, I do ice bath, I do yoga, then I do running, and I do weights. So I have a 2-hour regimen, and I don't compromise with that. So I feel like even being a CEO of a health company, it's basically taking care of my own health is very important. So 2 hours is blocked for me, 5:30 to 7:30. That's my daily regimen on my health.
So take us through that a little bit. Sauna.
Yeah, so sauna, once again, cold water, I feel like a lot of people may come up with so many theories on cold water. It just makes me feel good. Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own way of taking care of their mental health. When I come out amazing, like 100 coffees in one go. So I love that. So this is, and then just basically starting my day, and then I have a yoga practice that I start with the breathing. So I think breathing has been main part of my life by tackling stress, and even like when you feel lost and when you feel too much going on, I always use breathing as one of the main parameter to help me. So I start with that, and then I go to the yoga regimen, and then from there I go based on my weight training in the end, and I finalize everything at 7:30 by stretching.
So you're I would say you've got a bit of a public presence around this, I think, right? I've seen this on your website. You have, yes. This is your health is a part of your personal brand, I would say.
Yeah, I've climbed a few mountains in shorts and snow. So so I've done a few good things. I've planked for 20-30 minutes. Okay.
So no one will be competing with Parveen on this topic.
So I'm supposed to go after him?
I should have reversed. I'm sorry.
But I think the main thing is these understanding the data, and I feel like people make mistake of just interpreting the data in their own way. It's very important the healthcare to be part of it. Mm-hmm. Dr. Google, Dr. ChatGPT, sometimes can really turn against you. So this is where it's very important for us to have this data flowing through to look at the trends. A lot of people mention, well, this is not accurate. The heart rate is not accurate. It's like. And what I look for is, I'm not looking for it has to be 100% accurate, like the device at the doctor's office. Like when, what we are looking for are trends. If I see your trends are changing, if I see something is basically you were sleeping good, and now suddenly your sleep is down the drain, and your resting heart rate is skyrocketing, your respiratory rate is high, it is telling us something that we need to listen to. And that's very important. And even at workplace, I know when I get sick. I mean, I know one day in advance. If I don't act now, I will start seeing my resting heart rate go up. And the moment I didn't take care of it, next day, it's a full-on fever and everything else. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do, and that's where I want to make sure that everybody understands the data in one way, but also let the healthcare system also interpret the data in the way they should.
Navid, do you want to follow that or not?
I can't like that, but I'll say that I'll take it in a little different thread. I try to get into the gym a couple of days a week. I wear my Apple Watch. I take my supplements. I should do a lot more. I don't know if I'll ever.
No one's judging because we're all in your case and not in that case. So don't worry.
But I guess what I would advocate for is see your doctor, do your blood work, do a function health, get enough sleep. I mean, that's more important than almost anything else, right? And if God forbid something is wrong, whether it's a cancer diagnosis or you need knee surgery, get a second opinion. Doctors are people. There are good ones. There are bad ones. They could mean well, but you have to advocate for yourself. And I can't tell you the number of times we've had situations what we've heard of where it was a second opinion that saved that patient's life. And so that's where I advocate for that. If that's one thing to take away, get a second opinion if you have any potential procedure that a doctor is recommending.
Do you see artificial intelligence potentially disrupting the kind of standard of care model?
Yes.
And how?
So technology is always ahead of the law and ahead of the regulatory systems that, whether it's in healthcare or crypto or anything else. And the simple fact of the matter is, if the NCCN guideline, and this is away from what CureMetrics says a little bit, but if the NCCN guideline says everyone in a certain building has lung cancer, why should they all get the same treatment? Cancer molecularly is like a snowflake. No two are ever the same. And so why should one patient get the same treatment just because that's an FDA-cleared drug for that lung cancer or stomach cancer or any other cancer? You have to go get next-gen sequencing lab work, and there's plenty of labs that do that, whether it's public ones like Guardant or Tempus or Foundation or Caris or Boston Gene or others. And they're all over the world. Get the NGS, and that will say the molecular makeup of this person's specific cancer. This is what it is. And there's 700 cancers. Each cancer has 5 mutations on average. That's over 1 trillion patterns. That's beyond human cognition. So you need AI applications as a tool to empower the doctors to find the best treatment. So I think the NCCN guidelines are in the FDA, and there's a lot of change right now happening, right, and a lot of uncertainty. But that's where these things need to be integrated into the current system to then be truly able to deliver personalized precision medicine, whether it's cancer or anything else.
So we're going to take questions in just a minute. If anyone has a question, please come on up to the mic. In the meantime, I wanted to ask another treatment-related question, which is, here at FIRE and elsewhere, there are all of these incredible new treatments that are coming through the trial cycle. At the moment, there is no real good way for people with diseases like cancer or other, rare diseases to find trials for their specific disease, biomarkers, genetic makeup. And I'm just curious to hear either of your thoughts about, is there a good path forward to fix that? And are you aware of any technologies or companies that are trying?
I'll take a stab at that first. So there are a ton of cancer advocacy groups, and obviously they all mean well, and they focus on specific cancers, and that is important. However, it's also very scary if, God forbid, someone or their loved one gets cancer and they get on Google, and it is really disparate right now.
What I've mostly heard is that people will go in and doctors just have no real way of knowing, because for the patient, the point of contact is the doctor, and the doctor doesn't have the time to go out and research, and
they don't have enough hours in the day, and so I'll roundabout get to this. So follow the money. As much as nonprofits are great, you have to follow the money, and all roads lead to pharma. They pay upwards of $50,000 per patient matched for a trial. And it costs $2 billion on average to get a cancer drug cleared over 10 years. 35% of that $2 billion is the bottleneck of finding the right patients for the trial, whether it's from Sarah Cannon or City of Hope or a community hospital or UCSD. And so there's a lot of disruption happening right now in the CRO space. CROs, whether it's Syneos Health.
Sorry, could you define CRO?
I'm sorry, CROs are clinical research organizations that get hired by the pharma companies to run the trials, whether it's here or in Brazil or Europe or anywhere else. And so there's a lot of hands in the pot to get a piece of that money from pharma. And so that's causing some confusion. But there are now increasingly more companies that say we can mine the EHR systems in a situation where, let's say, it's telehealth and they have the cancer patients to say, okay, well, then let's partner, whether it's with larger organizations like Sarah Cannon, or there's a lot of second opinion companies and cancer advocacy companies.
So Parveen, I'm curious to hear from you. We just have a few minutes left. Are you asking a question or no? Oh, okay. Sorry. You weren't standing close enough to the microphone. We have a question.
Oh, sorry. I'm Ann Verdevec. I am a physician, so I appreciate all the research you're doing and also what Pattern's doing, because AI will transform medicine. We've already alluded to the lack of physicians and the soon-to-be explosion of the older population that will strain healthcare. So what I wanted to mention, more of a statement but then a question, is as you see your physicians, they're not going to know how to deal with mild calcification in a breast artery. So be patient with them, and I'm hoping AI will come out with that data so then they will know exactly what to do and how much further testing needs to be done and treatment, because physicians don't even know how to instruct patients on food, let alone lifestyle, let alone a complicated detail from some of their wearables. So I just thought I'd mention that, and I don't know if you want to address that as far as the data coming to help physicians with this.
No, thank you for that question, and it's spot on. You're right, doctors don't have enough hours in the day. And so in our case, the workflow is the primary care OBGYN orders the mammogram. They go to the radiologist at whether it's a hospital or outsourced imaging center like Solus Mammography or Simon Med or Radiology Partner is the biggest one, and the mammogram gets read. If our software is embedded there and something is flagged, again, that goes back to the primary care OB, that the action to take there is, let's get you to the cardiologist, right? And then the cardiologist takes the baton from there to do blood work, EKG, stress tests, CT angio. So our job is to identify it or help identify it. We're the technology vendor, we're not the doctor, but to help them do that, to then get them in the hands of the cardiologist to take it from there, get them on statins and other medications as they see fit.
Okay, one last quick question for Parveen. Yeah. How do you see, describe the doctor's office of the future, if I'm from the patient perspective?
So basically, more engaged patient, doctor office where lots of data are basically being transcribed by AI into summarized simple format, where doctors basically are about to see a patient, just get a little note on how basically this patient has been doing in terms of their sleep and everything else. And then a mechanism for the staff to be able to follow up certain things that doctor basically needs to look at. Because a lot of follow-ups that happen, there are false flags. So, and then basically things that can be ordered based on blood tests and everything else, quick with some buttons, on the screen, and just be able to create a workflow within the workflow they already have.
All right.
So a smart doctor office, which is more remote than all hands-on, but basically helped by AI.
So you see this as being not really a doctor's office, but maybe like the pre-doctor's office that helps decide whether you need to go to the doctor.
Yeah, this is how we are operating the doctor office at the clinic that we are working with right now.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are out of time, but thank you both so much for your ideas and your thoughts and your perspective and for everything that you're building.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I can't wait to see it in more offices.
Thank you.